Welcome to Plot Twist Radio, the show where creativity, storytelling, and the unpredictable path of the creative life all collide. I'm your host, Erin. Hi, Jason. Welcome to Plot Twist Radio.
Thanks for having me, Erin. I appreciate it.
It's great to have you. Before we get going, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
I am a stand-up comedian touring all over the U.S. right now. I'm also an actor and a writer, but I'm mostly on stages, live stand-up. I have a little social media stuff that I do, I'm a dude from Texas, living in New York City, chasing my dreams,
Absolutely. And as you said, you grew up in Texas. I grew up in Georgia. I now live in Chicago. So how much of Texas still lives in you? Because a lot of Georgia still lives in me.
Yeah, if I'm paying up here, that's my Texas Rangers baseball camp. So I'm still very tied to Texas. I love Texas. It's where I grew up. That's actually where I've been the last few weekends doing comedy. So yeah, it's still a part of me. I feel like you come to New York City and it's like, the city wants to beat everything out of you. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's okay to have some Texans in New York City.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's good.
I love it. I love both Texas and New York.
Yeah.
Totally different worlds, but
yeah, just two different speeds of crazy.
For sure. So what originally got you into comedy? Were you always just like the funny kid or?
No, I always was curious about people, I think is probably the thing. And I was always fascinated by the concept. I remember saying something funny when I was a kid and some adult laughed and I thought, what is this? And I come from a really solid family, and so I didn't have a rough childhood. I'm not trying to fill any voids. I'm not depressed. I'm optimistic. I'm sort of this weird style of comic, I guess. But I look back on it and I used to sing in church. So I would sing these solos in church. And before I sang in church, I would always talk a little bit and I would try to get them to laugh. And my thought was, if I can get them to laugh, then I can feel relaxed enough to sing the song, which I'm really nervous about. And little did I know, I'm like, that joke was my career. The song, my singing voice now is more like a joke. So it all just switched places, I guess. But you look back and that's what it just, the ability to bring another person joy, that's an alchemy that they can't always access themselves. And there's something magical about that. And it's one of my favorite things, just joy,
And I love comedy. I think we need more comedy in the world, but I just love it. A lot of my books, because I'm an author, I think I'm funny. I'm probably not, but I think I am. I don't know if that translates to my audience, but how do you go about writing your jokes?
I write what I'm interested in first, because like I say, the thing that drew me to any sort of entertainment is just a curiosity about people. And so if something's interesting or confusing or new or a different perspective on something, I'm always looking for that thing that stimulates me. We sort of, because life is so chaotic and it's so fast, and you've got to do so many things, we tend to categorize things in very broad styles so that we can organize ourselves to move forward in the world instead of just, cowering in fear. And I think a lot of times those little spaces between what's actually real and how we organize them, that's where a lot of the comedy is. And for me, so I just, if I'm curious about something, I'll just start writing. Sometimes I'll have a joke in my head and I'll start, but I find that, and I write by hand in a notebook, and I find that, if I'm writing by hand, inevitably by the end of 2 pages of writing about a subject, the thing that I thought was funny is not the thing that ended up being the funny thing. So it's just fast enough for my brain to keep up with, but just slow enough for my brain to process while I'm writing. So that's really my process, is start with curiosity and see where that leads you.
It's a good starting point.
Yeah, it's good for either a comedian or detective. Either one of those. You can go either way with that.
For sure. So, comedy, it seems like a fun career from the outside, but
Hmm.
it can be brutal. Like the grind can be brutal, a different city every night.
Yeah.
Obviously audiences vary.
Yeah.
That's something people don't understand about that lifestyle.
I mean, the best part of it is that, when you're successful at it, you can get paid a solid amount of money to go and stand in front of an audience and just make them happy for an hour, which I always have contended just in a personal capacity that the greatest way to be happy is to strive to make someone else happy. Incidentally, the greatest way to be sane is to realize you cannot make everybody happy. So you got to use both of those facets of it. But I mean, I literally get paid to make people happy, and there's nothing I would rather be doing with my life than that. I mean, that is such a wonderful, beautiful thing. But in order to get there, I've done a lot of work for zero money. I've failed a lot. You have to fail miserably in order to get good. I think in anything that's true. In comedy, it's just in your face because when you fail, it hurts immediately. You don't get any buffer between an audience who's angry at you and failure. So I think you fail a lot, you get paid very little for a lot of it, and you're constantly rejected because it's a great career path, and everybody would do it if it was easy. But part of the thing is you ask bookers, you say, hey, I want to bring joy to your place, and they're like, no, no, we will have none of your joy here. And so there's a ton of rejection, and you got to be comfortable with that. And you have to be, I think there's a level of it where the highs are so high that the lows can be significantly low. And if you're not equipped to stabilize in that from both sides, that's where you got a lot of people in the past, a lot of drug use, a lot of alcohol abuse, a lot of depression, and I think people have to contend with that. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be just dumb enough to sleep at night, so I'm not as susceptible to some of the more depressive components of it, and I'm too boring for some of the more excessive parts of it. So I'm in a sweet spot, but it's still, you face a lot of rejection, you face a lot of pain, you face a lot of people who just, and look, there's in every crowd, there's likely to be one person who's just like, he's not my thing, and you get that right to your face. Most people don't get it right to their face. You get it right to your face.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be like my biggest fear. I hate speaking in public to begin with, so if I
Yeah.
I would hate that. But how do you psych yourself up before you go out?
Because I've done it for so long, it's not as psychologically taxing before I go out. I know what I can do, so it's easy for me to go out there and go, look, I can make these people laugh. They're gonna have a good time, which is great. I mean, sometimes you're exhausted when you're doing it. I mean, I've had, my dad was sick for a long time. Sometimes I would get off the phone with my mom about what was going on with my dad and literally walk onto a stage. So sometimes the shifting from where you are to where you need to be, is a challenge. But I feel like going out on the stage, that's where I'm most comfortable. Everything else is chaos to me. It's just once I step on the stage, I'm like, oh, this is relaxing. This
Oh,
is where I'm most relaxed.
that's good. Then you're like in your element,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that's where we perform our best, no matter what we're doing.
Right. Find your playground and and work there.
So you've performed pretty much everywhere from clubs to military tours.
Yeah.
Was there a unforgettable crowd that you can still like not get out of your mind?
Um, there are two sides of it. One, there was a crowd in Dallas, Texas, and this was when I was a feature comedian. So I wasn't even the headliner yet. I was just doing 20 minutes before the headliner. And I will never forget, it was just a bunch of just large black women who were in the front, and they were so gregariously joyful. Their laugh was so amazing that sometimes when things weren't going well, you know, because that's when you're in the struggle period. Like you're good enough to headline, but you're not well known enough to get all the work you want to get. And so anytime I would have a struggle, I would play the recording because I record all my sets to listen back to. I would play the recording of that set and those women laughing. And they brought me so much more joy than I brought them. And if you were in the room, you're like, there's no way anybody's had more joy than these women. But they have since that day for a full decade brought me more joy than I brought them at all that night. And that's the great part of it. And then I performed in Afghanistan to a base where someone had been killed. One of their soldiers at that base had been killed, and we performed for them like a day later. And there was almost no laughter, and it was crazy how uncomfortable it felt. But you're like, I'm a professional. I'm still putting out the joy. And I'll never forget walking out of there. More than one guy came up to me and said, "Thank you so much. We needed this so much." And I'm like, I don't know what you felt, but it wasn't out loud. And and sometimes you realize the joy you bring some people is just releasing them from pain for, 10 minutes. And so it was, so on both sides of that. And I will never forget either one of those sets. And I will never forget either one of those conversations or audience interactions.
I can imagine that has to be quite powerful for you. It takes a lot of strength to even do that.
I mean, it takes a lot of strength to go and sacrifice your life conceivably for your country, and to be able to go over there and sacrifice 10 minutes of comfort for myself to give those guys 10 minutes of release from pain is, that's not half the sacrifice they were giving. So, it fulfills you in a way because you feel like I'm giving something. I'm allowing them some reward for what they've sacrificed for me.
For sure. And it's wonderful that you guys go over there and do that. Musicians, my friend, he was stationed over in Afghanistan for years, it seemed like, and he was just so depressed, but he would get so happy when anybody would come over and perform. It just made their day.
Yeah. And they told us, and that was beautiful. It was a great thing to be a part of. I've done multiple trips abroad, and Afghanistan was the only one I've ever done in an active war zone. And that was the most rewarding of all of them. It was the most exhausting. It was the most sleep deprived, chaotic situation, but by far the best of all of them.
I can see that. So I've spoken with a couple comedians, and they kind of say that, comedy has evolved a lot since they first got into it. Have you noticed a shift, especially within the last half decade or so?
I would say probably in the last half decade, you're dealing with COVID shifted a lot of things, because COVID shifted. I mean, comedy clubs were the worst possible constructs for COVID because COVID needs ventilation and space and distancing, and comedy needs compression and lack of space and walls that things bounce off of, So, there was a big shift in understanding the nuances of the structure of the thing. I think comedy itself split a little bit because you had people who were very sort of libertarian centric, sort of like freedom first above everything, and then there were others who were like community first above everything, and so you did sort of split off into these things. I think that's the motivating factor. I mean, you can designate it in a lot of different political ways and all these other things, but it was like we all love freedom and we all love community, but it was like the prioritizing of the two that sort of separated comedy. And I think it's interesting because you ended up getting some meaner comedy, you ended up getting some more aggressive comedy, and then you ended up getting some kinder comedy, I think, and some more aware comedy, where curious comedy and judgmental comedy. That's probably a good way to split it up. And I think both of those can be very fun. I would posit that every comedian has curiosity, and judgment is a huge part. That's how you form a joke. You make you ask a question and then you go, but why? You know?
Right.
And I think there was sort of a split. Uh, but I think the curiosity is always at the middle of it. And so it's interesting because I'll talk to comedians who tend to be one side or the other side. And curiosity is always that's the thread. And that's why I love talking to comedians, because you find out more things than you do talking to normal people. Because we're all thinking it. We're like, what about this? What about this? I have this, and people have strong opinions. And there's nothing like a debate between two people who think they know the exact answer.
There's a lot of that out there, I see. That's
Yeah.
why I stay off social media as much as possible. I see a lot of that.
Yes, it's better to do in a comedy club where you're looking another human in the eye and you can tell when you've crossed the line. Everybody's capable of doing it online in a comment section. Do it to a person's face. That's a real conversation. That's worth still pursuing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you said you're doing a tour. Do you have an active one right now?
Yes, yeah, I call it the Make Laugh Not War Tour. Uh, yeah, my following's a little bit politically driven. So I do a little bit of politics in my shows at the beginning, but ultimately I would say whatever your politics are, by the end of the show, I would venture you've had a good time, no matter what. And I also explain when I'm making fun of politicians, I'm like, none of us are politicians. We're all the people who suffer from the choices of politicians. So, yeah, look, if you have a problem with gas prices, you're my audience, period. Period. So I don't think that's as divisive as politicians want us to believe it is. But yeah, I'm touring all over. I'm going to be doing a Father's Day weekend in Detroit and Cleveland, and I'm all up in the Northwest, and I've got on my website, I've got all the lists. But yeah, I've got about I think 60 something dates.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been a busy year so far, and it's gonna be it's continuing to be busy.
Yeah, you're gonna be tired.
I am tired right now.
So where can the audience find you?
My social media is the easiest place to find as a starting point, and that's J Salmon Comedy, and my last name's Salmon, but it's spelled like salmon. So it's J Salmon Comedy, and that's on all of the social media. Although YouTube, I'm at Jason Salmon for whatever reason. And then jason-salmon.com, that's my website. That's got all my tour dates and ticket links, and yeah, that's the easiest place to find me.
Very cool. Well, I will have all the links in the show notes, and thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.